Brandi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I know, I'm excited too. My favorite interviews are the ones with just like friends because I'm like, I just feel like we're just chatting and we're just recording. But I also know you're going to add a ton of value to our audience today, and I'm stoked. So, we met in 2021 in a mastermind together, and I have been able to witness your brilliance over the years. But I will say, this past fall, we actually hired you to help us as like an interim CMO, like a chief marketing officer. And I really got to see inside of your beautiful brain. So I'm excited to share with everybody.
Yay. That was definitely fun. I'm always like, I think it's one of those things when you work with friends, you're always like, oh, this could go really great or this could go really bad. And so I'm glad it went the really great way.
So you're saying I was a great client?
You were fantastic.
All right, let's get into it. So we're going to just start here. You basically went from bankruptcy in a business to building out a 7-figure business in like under 2 years, right?
Yeah, 2 years, like to the dot. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about that. Because in that time, you then later, you right after that had your first baby?
So
Because you've been busy.
yeah. Now we have another one. So, and I guess this has been, so Riley just turned 6. So that means that July of this year will be 6 years that I've had my business. So just real quick, I was in direct sales for 8 years. I went from law school to direct sales. And
I
with
thought you said
that,
drug sales, and I was
oh,
like,
direct,
wow,
sorry,
didn't know
MLM.
that.
Pretty much the same thing, lipstick, cosmetics, drugs, whatever. And so law school into MLM, and then was there, and I moved quickly there. 5 months, earned my first free car, top 1% of the company, and did that for 8 years. And one thing is that it's structure. I mean, I don't want to bash what anyone does because some people have amazing success, and we did for a long time. But then there comes a point where no one tells you how to run a business. And I was also 22, coming from a very like low middle class family, then all of a sudden bringing in like 20,000 cash a month. And it's like, that's more than, I was seeing in a whole year, and I had worked since I was 14. And so this amount of money was like bananas to me. And I didn't know what to do with it. And then as I grew, my responsibilities as a business owner got heavier. I had a studio that I had to pay rent, water, electricity. I had a lifestyle that was growing. I had now to train people. And so my overhead was getting up, and the whole time no one's teaching you in that industry how to manage your money or how to run a business, and saying like everything's a tax write-off. And then it's like that's not really how it works.
Yeah.
And so I found myself 8 months pregnant, and another thing is I let what my role was, my title in the company, the car I drove, the diamond rings I earned, the designer handbags, which none of that has ever been me. I'm not a designer handbag person, but like I let all that define who I was as a person, and my identity got wrapped really heavily into that. And then I was given some bad financial decisions about like when production was low, you need to order more to maintain that card, to maintain that status. So just put it on credit cards.
Mm.
And so I found myself at 8 months pregnant with Riley. And I told my husband, I was like, I can't continue to do this. Like, he didn't realize how much I'd put on credit cards or anything like that. And because I wasn't taught that this was a business, everything was under our personal.
Oh,
Like, we were
wow.
personally liable. This wasn't like business debt, it was us debt because there was no business technically. And so, besides the whole like, we can't financially keep doing this, it was also like, I don't want to bring a little girl into the world and her knowing that her mom has so much of her identity wrapped into what she does to make money.
Wow.
And so I called the company and was like, hey, I'm done. Come pick up my car, get rid of my unit. Like, and they were like, what? This doesn't happen. And I was like, I'm done. My husband was like, what? Like, what are you doing?
What
Like,
was the
he was
plan?
working. I didn't have one. He was working, but like his job when we moved, we had moved to Virginia because I'd never held a baby, and I was about to have one, and my parents and his family were there. And so we moved back, and he took a job that was less money than he was making for the benefits.
Wow.
And so it wasn't like we had his money to roll back, like his job to like rely on. And I was like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Well, Riley was born 2 months later. And then when she was 5 months old, I sat down on my kitchen floor one day and Austin came home from work. I'd already got her to bed and I was a puddle of tears. And I was like, I've went over all the options. I've been trying to maintain this, but we have to file bankruptcy. And he was like, "What are you talking about? Like, where is this coming from?" He had no idea. And that's when I hit like rock bottom. Like that was the hardest thing in my life because I knew what we had to do. I'd went to law school. I knew what this meant for us. I knew what bankruptcy like all the things that go along with that. And I also knew that there was no other way out. At that point, there was like no other way. So just to even pay for the bankruptcy attorney, I needed to figure out what to do. And I needed to make money. And so I started Googling, like, how do you make money from home? And it was like blogging and all this stuff. And I was like, God, no one wants to hear me write. But then I remember I had hired virtual assistants for my business, but they sent like birthday postcards. And I was like, God, I cannot send birthday postcards. But what I did know is how to do marketing. I knew how to send emails. I knew how to do text messaging. I knew how to build a social media. Like I knew how to do all this because
Were those skills that you had created in that MLM?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, was flown out to Utah to help build a texting company. Like
Wow.
that was my jam and my sales knowledge. Like, I mean, I was top sales and recruiting. So like I knew how to sell, I knew how to market. And then I found out like, oh, people hire you to like grow their social media and stuff. So I started out as a social media manager, quickly grew that, but then I was charging hourly and I was getting burned out really fast. But we made enough money to pay for the bankruptcy. And then that, went through and everything. And it was like the biggest weight was lifted off my shoulders. And it was kind of like, not necessarily a fresh start because it's not that at all. But it was just like my back was against the wall. We made it work. And then it was like, okay, now the universe has lifted this. Now what can I do to make sure that we never get into this situation again?
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, I'm going to run this business and do everything differently from a back end perspective that I did in that business. And so after that, I figured out I needed to really niche down to something and found out Facebook ads. And from there, like business took off. I was running those for people. And then that's when I created also my other programs and those took off. And like we had our $1 million business in 2020, 1.2 million. And so it all happened like super fast, but
Yeah.
I focused on profitability the whole time. And that was really important to me.
Okay. So one of the biggest lessons that came from the first experience was to make sure that I had a profit margin, not just a revenue margin, right?
Yeah, and I think the other big lesson I learned is I was hustling. Like I didn't have kids. I could work 24/7, but when it came time to have this business, I had Riley and Austin was still full-time at work. He was gone and as a chef, like they're never home. Like
Yeah.
they're always gone. And so the other thing was how can I like get as much milk as possible for like doing the least amount of work? And that's when it really opened my mind to like, oh, my business started growing and growing and growing the less I did in
Mhm.
terms of like got really clear on who I served, what I was doing. Like I wasn't this, I wasn't that. And I literally started listing out like I don't do this, I don't do that. Cause a lot of times it's easier for us to say what we're not about than what we are about. And
Yes.
you can get clarity in the what I'm not standing for in doing that exercise. And so
Can you
once
give
I
me some
started doing
examples of things that you
yeah.
wouldn't stand for or still don't today?
Yeah, so, like, I didn't want an agency. Everyone was
Okay.
like, "You have to scale, you have to have an agency," and I was like, "I'm trying to manage a household, a baby, a husband, like, I do not want an agency, so if I wanna make 20,000 a month as a freelancer, well, what if I just charged more per client and took on less clients?"
Yeah.
And it's crazy how that happens because you then give those clients more attention, they get better results than trying to work with 20 clients to
Right.
get to the same amount.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any other examples of things that you still today don't stand for?
Yeah, so, like, I don't do, like, summits, like, anything that requires me to be, like, super live and time committed, like, sometimes I'll do, like, pre-recorded ones, but when that stuff comes in, it's, like, a hard no, and also, unless we know the person, a lot of times, like, podcast interviews now, at this point in my business, they're a hard no. When yours
Oh, I'm
came
so
through, of
grateful.
course, it was, like, a yes, But even there's times where something's a no, but then it becomes a yes. So, like, we used to have guests on our podcast, and I love that. After Bodhi was born, my newest baby, like, we've just went to a hard no on guests because my schedule doesn't always
Yeah.
look like I want it to. He's still, he's not even a year yet. And so, guests on our podcast, when those come in, they're a hard no. So, I think just making sure that, like, you have these rules, and even I have great friends that are like, "Hey, I want to be on the podcast." I'm like, "Oh, I want you to be on the podcast, but it's a no right now."
Yeah.
And just having to stick with that and be okay with like, I can't do that. Like, or
But also
it's not
changing
that
your
I
mind.
can't, but I'm choosing not to.
Yeah. And the permission to change your mind in different seasons
Yeah.
where like maybe in the
Yeah.
future you will do guests again.
Yeah,
It's so
absolutely.
important.
I
Yeah.
I so see us doing guests in the future, but right now it's not a yes for us. And so I think that's the other thing. If it's people always ask, how do you run your business with such a small team? Because it's just me and Janessa and still like have the things that you have. And I'm like, I just say no to a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
even coming down to, up until recently, I didn't do organic social media. Like I just didn't. And it was because we didn't have the bandwidth. Or when people say, hey, I want to bring in, can I be an affiliate for your launch? For us, it's like, we want to make sure that we support anyone who supports our business 100%. We don't have the bandwidth right now for that. And we're okay with like slower growth to make sure that we maintain our reputation.
Yeah.
And so we're not going to like give people, let them into our launch and be an affiliate if we can't dedicate the time needed to support them. So it's those things that you have to say, like, does this align with like my current goals? And that would be yes, of course, bringing in
Right.
affiliates align, but do I have the support to sustain that and to make sure that they have a great experience? And the answer to that is no. So then you have to say, okay, do I want to bring in people to support them? And at this time for us, it's a no, but I can see maybe in the fall, quarter 4, we will bring on someone. So
Yeah.
it's just looking at things like that.
Yeah, I love how you look at that. It's also just thinking about the longer term vision. It's
Yeah.
like, yes, it's very easy for anyone to get caught up in the right now, the instant gratification that could help this launch in this moment. But it's like, well, what are we building as a whole and the company core values and how does that all align? Okay, so I love the fact that you just brought up the organic social media thing because obviously that's what I want to talk about a lot. So for my audience, generally everything that we do and how we built was organic and what we teach is organic, meaning not paid ads. However, now the last 2.5, 3 years, we have started to test out and play with ads. And that's something that you have helped us tremendously with. So when I joined the mastermind that we met in, the majority of the room built their businesses off of ads, not organic. And I like my brain was broken and I didn't understand how y'all did that. So I would love if we could talk about ads and how we can make them less scary, more
Yeah.
approachable. And maybe you could just even break down for starters, like why someone would use ads, debunk the myth that they're bad or dirty or unfair. And
Yeah.
then the third part, and I can circle back, would be breaking down the types of ads.
Okay. So I think the first thing I love ads because it's a numbers game. Like it's so numbers oriented. And I think that a lot of times for me, I always say numbers don't have emotion. And
Ooh,
so when you're playing the numbers, you take the emotion out of it. And I'm not saying that there's no emotions with ads. We can talk about what it looks like when those $900 things come through
yeah.
receipts and you're like, oh, like what is happening? What if these don't work? But for the most part, if we know our numbers, like it's just a game. Like we're just like running through the numbers. And I'm not a gambling person. Like I hate gambling. So it's not even like I'm someone who's into gambling. It's just numbers. And so if we know that every time you launch, it converts at 6%. It's like, okay, how many leads do we need to get in there? How much can we pay per client in order to make this successful for us? And when we run those numbers, it really takes the fears of running ads away, especially after the first time running ads and you have the numbers from not just your organic, but also your ads, because those are usually going to be a little bit cheap or cost more than your organic traffic because they already know, like, and trust you.
Would you have someone run ads from the get-go, or are you more in the camp of have a proven offer, have some data to
Oh,
back it
yeah.
up, and then start running ads?
Yeah. So I definitely and it's twofold because I ran my own ads to my membership right off the bat because I didn't have an audience. but I knew how much money I was willing to, what I always ask clients that it's a brand new offer. They don't know what the results are. I always say, how much money are you willing to catch on fire to get like data? Like that's
Yeah.
pretty much what you're doing because you have no idea what's going to happen. And so for me, and that launch was $2,000. I was like, woo. And I was like, this is a lot of money. What are we going to do? And I spent the $2,000 and we had a $60,000 launch. And I'm like, okay, like now I know like what my numbers are. I know my conversion. So now we can just play off those. And so I think it's one of those things. Ideally, you want to have a proven offer. You want to have to know your numbers, but also we live in the real world. Not everyone has that. And so then it's setting expectations. Are you willing to spend enough money to get results and to know your numbers? And how much are you okay spending to just know your data? I mean, like, if we think about big companies, they spend millions of dollars just on testing per year.
Yeah.
So if you think about it from your small business, it's like, can you spend 2, 3, 4,000 and test out your numbers? And if you have organic traffic also going to it, it's kind of like if your product's $2,000, if you got 2 organic sales, that's 4,000, it covers your ad spend. And then you're kind of like, okay, so if I can know that I'll get 2 clients that will cover that ad spend, then I'm good. Then it's like, okay, I can do that to figure out how much. Or maybe you take a one-on-one client that you don't normally do and be like, I'm taking this money and putting it towards ads to get my data.
Do you feel that people's businesses get to a place where they've dried their organic pool up and they kind of have to turn to ads?
No, I mean, it depends. So, like, people who launch a lot, like 3, 4 times a year, usually I say, like, you're not bringing in enough leads between the launches to make your launches bigger. Like, because then you'll hear people say, like, our launches aren't growing, our launches deplete. And it's like, it's because you're not bringing in enough leads between the launches. So you can totally do that organically. It's going to take longer. It's going to take more content. It's going to, like we never know what's going on with the algorithm and all those things. Or you could put a little bit of money between your launches into lead generation, and then you're going to naturally have bigger launches because you have new people always coming into your world.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone taps out of their organic. I think it's a longer, slower burn than doing it with ads.
Yeah. And when you're growing that lead list in between launches, for the person who's listening who is not ready for ads, doesn't want to do that, doesn't have the, overhead, whatever that might be right now, you can still be building your list and building your leads in between launches without ads. You're just doing it organically, like you said. So it's pushing people to a new free opt-in, creating a quiz, having them, you're constantly doing things like that to build the list. When you talk about ads, so admittedly, because I built my business organically, that was part of our marketing. That was part of our messaging. And that was part of what was so sexy. And it was like, wow, look at what I was able to do organically. I didn't have to pay for ads. I've spent no money on any of it. And that for so long was a lot of what we leaned into.
Yeah.
I don't know why the belief that I had at the time, a couple of years back, was that ads were bad, or not that they were bad, but it was like, ooh, you couldn't do it organically, so you had to use ads. It was almost like that approach. And I came from the world of all of my mentors. It was organic, organic, organic. None of them used ads. Let's talk about that mindset for a second, because I obviously feel differently now.
Yeah. And I think it's funny because I come from the mindset, and we're both projectors, which is funny that you think that organic's the best way. For me, I'm like, efficiency, baby. Like, let's do this fast. Let's do it the like cheap. Like, to me, time is everything.
Yeah.
And so if I can not, I don't want to say shortcut, but that is the best word. If I can like speed up my results and my success faster by running ads, why wouldn't I do it? Like,
Yeah.
and so I think that it's coming from this notion that like, oh, if I don't have to pay for something, then it makes it better. But also like, if we think about it, the best experiences in our life, we've paid for it. They haven't been the free ones.
Yeah.
And so this comes up a lot. It's not just you. But I only see it with people who they lean on social media as their marketing.
Right.
Like if I'm working with a new sleep coach and she's built this amazing, successful business without running ads, that's great, but she's not holding on that belief that like ads are bad. It's just like, oh, I'm at to a point with my business where like, I think let's get into more audiences. So let's do it. But any client I've ever had that works in the organic space, that is definitely a mindset that they come from. It's like a badge of honor.
Yes.
But like at the end of the day, as long as what you're doing is legal and ethical, it doesn't really matter how you get there.
Right. Especially when if you're solely helping people, like if you're
Yeah.
putting something out that helps people, my perception of the whole thing has changed over the years and it's taken a
Yep.
while for me to get there. But now I live in the both and world and I'm like, yeah, I get to play in both. I get to play
Yeah.
in, we get to reach new audiences through ads and we're fortunate we have the profit margins and the overhead where we can play there and look at the
Yeah.
numbers and math is the path. But and also there's so much beauty in organic for us. And for us,
Yeah.
we have found because our ticket price might be a little bit higher, there is a time lapse that needs to happen.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare for someone to come from an ad cold and buy immediately. So I'm
Yeah.
curious if you could just talk about that for a second, because I found for us the first time that we ran ads now about 3 years ago, my expectation, which that was my fault, was like, great, now I could take my foot off the gas. I could breathe a little. I don't have to do as much work as hard because we have all these
Yeah.
ads. And then it was like, I think we made one sale from the ads. And it was such a rude awakening until I then realized the next launch, some of the people that had come in previously started to convert. So talk about that kind of time frame. There's like a portal that
Yeah.
happens in the ether.
Yeah, and there's also this beautiful thing is when you do organic traffic, typically your ads are cheaper because you have a better audience.
Hmm.
You have a warm audience that we can tap into. And a lot of people, I think, come in and think that we're only reaching new audiences with ads. And a lot of times we actually want to go for your warm audience first. And those are people who are already on your email list. They're already following you on Instagram. They're on Facebook. They visit your website. But the thing is, we know what is it like? You'll know this better than me. Only 3% of your audience on Instagram now actually sees what you post.
Oh
I
gosh.
mean,
Yeah.
it's like super, super low. And so it's like, and then talk about email open rates, like most people have 30%. So then you're missing 70% there. You're missing 90% of people on your Instagram. So if we can put an ad in front of people who already know, like, and trust you, those ads are going to be so much cheaper. So if you're tapping into organic, then your ads are going to be cheaper. You're going to already be warming up, but then this content that you're creating gets to live on longer because now we're going to put a little bit of money behind it so that audience sees it. Another thing you can do is in those warm up periods is run low ticket ads to grow your email list or what I call billboard ads, which are literally just taking some of your video content or really high engagement post, putting some money behind that, not expecting anything in return, but $5, $10 a day, and putting that in front of new people that will then usually when you run ads, your Instagram, your Facebook already grow just because new people are seeing you.
Right.
They're seeing that content, but you can naturally grow your email list and your awareness and your like brand awareness by running $5 a day ads between those launches as well. So there's this play of having both organic and paid advertising for sure. And paid ads don't have to be expensive all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. We've worked with a couple different ad specialists at this point now, and Mike does all of them for us, and you help out when we have questions. We've heard this idea of keeping the lights on.
Yeah.
So when you're out of a launch, the idea of still having some money going to something. What's the
Yeah.
benefit of that? And do you agree?
Yeah, because we have windows that we want to tap into. So like, 180-day window. And so if your launches are more than 180 days away, you could be not tapping into all the potential you could because all that data's went. Also, Facebook's trying to cut down on Meta, which includes Facebook, Instagram. They're trying to cut down on all the spam and the bots and the
What's
hackers that
spam? I've
jump in.
never seen any. Bots. What's a bot?
Yeah. And then like the hacking. And so when you go from spending a ton of money during a launch to nothing and then spending more, they see that as a red flag. And that's when caps can be put on your spend limit. That's when they may like shut down your ad account for unusual activity. And so
Mm,
from a security standpoint, you look real sketch when you're only like going high, like spending a whole bunch of money and then nothing. So it is one of those things from that perspective, we want to be running them, even if it's lower ticket. Also building audiences, lower ticket, and it just it shows Facebook that you're a committed advertiser and not just like these one-offs. It's the
yeah.
same reason why we don't boost post because it
Mm,
shows that you're not a serious advertiser, but it also keeps your account seasoned because post iOS 14, they don't have as much data as they did before on us. And that's a good thing, I guess. But it makes, from an advertising standpoint, sometimes a little bit harder to get the results we want at the costs we want.
Yeah.
And so what happens is if we're always running ads, Facebook's always building data because they can, especially if we're doing on platform activity like video views or engagement, because they can track all activity that happens on their platform. So when you constantly have that going, they're finding your people for you and your ad account is getting seasoned. And so then when it comes time to run ads, you have a better chance of getting the lead cost you want and the right audience into your launches.
Mm. What are some of the trends that you're seeing right now that are working in ads? So even, for example, I feel like back in the day when not a lot of people were doing it, I'm talking like, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
it was very QVC. Like, are you feeling, is this right? So like what's working, what's trending right now when you're putting an ad together?
Yeah, Reels. I mean, Reels are that's what they want. That's where they're spending their money. That's where we're seeing the lowest ad cost. And not like just dancing pointing reels. And you have to also be careful with that because you'll see reels that have copyrighted music, but that's against terms and policies. So like you can get your ad account shut down. So if you're playing a Beyonce song, like don't run ads to that because that's a copyright violation. But if it's like some like voiceover type of deal, that's not copyrighted. You can use that kind of stuff. So you just have to be careful. Like, is this a popular song? Is it like a remix of a popular song? Like, you're not going to want to use those. But the reels is what they want. It's what people are engaging in. Even Facebook reels, like, I saw that the number of viewerships is way up on those now. From Meta's quarterly reports, we're seeing the lowest cost. And then it's just, they look more native. So they don't look as ad. And Facebook only has so much room to show ads because
Yeah.
they have to like have a positive experience on Instagram, Facebook. And so every post you scroll can't be an ad. So eventually they run out of room if there's so many advertisers on there and your ad cost goes up. Well, Reels is still a placement because there's different placements, like Facebook feed is one placement, Instagram feed, stories. Well, Reels are a placement. Not everyone is tapping into Reels yet. So that's your cheapest placement.
Gotcha.
So you want to be tapping into that for a lower cost. But what we're seeing is like really natural, organic looking reels. So just you living your life, B-roll ones, talking head that's like quick, snappy, strong hooks right off the bat. Those are the things that are performing the best right now. And then carousel post.
Yeah.
Carousel posts are doing really, really well from an ads perspective.
Yeah. With the reels right now in reels world, shorter reels are doing well. I mean, they have for a long
Yeah.
time. The gurus say 7, 8, 9 seconds, like super short. If it's a talking head video and you're running an ad to it, do you still feel like it needs to be super fast and short? Or is it, you
No.
can go 30, 60 seconds?
I'm a believer of people say like short form content's it, but yet we're all binging Netflix.
Yeah.
And so like long form content does well when it keeps your attention. Are you creating open loops? Are you doing like, are you being a marketer and like applying those marketing techniques into these? So
Yeah.
starting with a strong hook, having an open loop and then story and then open loop again. And so if we can do that effective storytelling, if we can add value, I don't think it matters how long it is. If someone's getting value out of it and it's getting to the point and
Mhm.
creating curiosity, it doesn't matter how long it is.
Yeah. So valid too, because I feel like there's times where I'll jump on YouTube to look for something and an ad will pop up and I'm 4 minutes in and I'm like, why am I still watching
I
this?
know. And
How'd
so
they
this
get
is the
me?
thing, like people will consume long form
Yeah.
content if it's valuable and if it's like tight and to the point.
Yeah. Let's chat marketing for a second, because as a whole, that's for sure your superpower. I believe, and I think you do too as well. It's a little bit unfortunate, but it's not the best coach that wins. It's the best marketer that wins. And I would love to talk about what that means. Like you just said good marketing. Like what is required from you to be a good marketer?
So I don't know if I agree with you.
That's okay.
So I was just on a call, a one-on-one coaching call today, and I was talking to her and I was like, your sales team, that they're like great at sales, great at marketing, but there has to be alignment in the delivery or really quickly your whole brand, your name, will be tarnished, and then your reputation's everything. Once that
Totally.
reputation's gone, then there's nothing. So I think
Okay, so I won't say that the best marketer wins, but the best marketer will make the sale.
yes. So I
Yes.
agree with that. So you could be the best coach ever and never have a sale.
Yes.
But then, I want to clarify that there is that balance where you could grow really quick and then go down real quick too,
Yeah.
if it doesn't align. So yeah, I think marketing comes down to knowing your audience. Like, you have to know them inside and out. Like, what are they thinking about at night? What keeps them up? What are their desires? What do they Google? Like, what are they doing? What if time and money did not matter, what would they like be doing with their life? And what's important to them? Because, bro marketer who rents out a yacht and has bikini clad girls dancing in the background throwing money, that's going to attract like people like
Yeah.
shame them. And I'm like, no, they're talking to their audience. That is going to attract their audience. They know exactly what they're doing. My audience, though, if I did that, would be like, who are you? Heck, I think if someone wanted me to put in my copy, a copywriter was like, oh, so you can go get a Louis Vuitton. And I was like, you don't know my audience at all. Like, if I
Yeah.
said Louis Vuitton, they would be like, what? They want Disney vacations that are paid in cash. They want to pay off their student loans.
Rope drop.
Yes,
Did I get it
rope
right?
drop. They
Did I
want to
get
be
it
able to
right?
experience. Yeah, you did. They want to experience rope drop without also having the financial stress of what a Disney vacation costs. They
Yeah.
want to build their dream homes. They want to have a family that everyone eats dinner together. That's very different than yachts, dollars, and that kind of thing. And neither one are right and wrong. Both of us are speaking to our ideal audience. So I think you have to get really clear on what are their wants, desires, and passions, and what's going to really bring them in. 9 out of 10 times, it's not the money.
Yeah.
It's like what that money does for them. But then you have to have an offer that's going to get them results.
Yeah.
And it's not about, and you have to be able to market that offer. And so it's not about like, hey, I have this offer. It has a bazillion things, because most people don't want a bazillion things. They just want the transformation. And if you can do that with 2 things, they're going to be much happier with that than with all the things. So, can you add value to their life that's going to get them the transformation they need in the shortest amount of time? And for some people, it takes 12 months. For other people, it takes 90 days. But making sure that whatever that promise is actually what you can deliver is the other piece of that. And then the third thing is, I think you just have to be in this environment, in this landscape, is you just have to know. This comes back to what we started with. You have to know, what is your values, what's your hard nose, what are you going to do, what are you going to stand for, what are you not going to stand for, what are you going to talk about. And you can't like sway on that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
because if you're someone who's like, I'm not going to talk about politics, and then something happens and you jump on and you start talking about politics, every single time something happens, you're going to be expected to say something.
Yep.
So you have to get really clear on, this is what I do, this is what I don't do. We were talking before this call, and Jess was telling me I can't say a bunch of bad words. And I was like, I don't do that like on my calls anyway. And I was like, but it's funny, I do that a lot in real life. Like, having children, I've really had to learn how to like censor my words.
Mhm.
And my little daughter comes in and says, I'm hungry AF, mom. And so like, my husband's like, great, know who she got that from. But in the online world, I know my audience is moms.
Yep.
And so I'm not going to be cussing on my podcast, because I know they probably have kids around. They have kids in the car. And some people will say that's inauthentic, but it's not. It's being considerate of my audience. And so whatever those values are, you have to stick with them, and you cannot be flip-flopping in your marketing, because people notice that.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And that's the exact reason why I say, please no cursing, because I know who's listening. I know who's listening. I also think there's a time and a place for like a curse word. Not that this is like the conversation we're having. And sometimes it could be impactful, but usually it's invasive and it's jarring and it's not necessary. It's like just getting louder. You don't have to get louder to make a point. It's oftentimes when you're softer that the point comes through, it's like, we don't need to just yell. Okay. So with marketing, it's really knowing the client, it's understanding their pains, their pleasures, their language. My guess is copy and messaging.
Yeah.
Spending
Absolutely.
the time to do these things. Do you feel that a lot of times service providers and coaches are often future versions of their ideal client?
Oh, yeah. And it was so funny. I was just with a group, and they were like, me 3 years, or I guess 4 years ago now. And I sat there and I said, we were talking about my story, and one of them had heard my bankruptcy podcast episode. And she said, "Can you tell everyone?" And I was like, I was sitting on the floor crying because I had to come up with enough money. I started my freelance business to pay for the bankruptcy attorney. And they were like, "That is the most powerful statement ever." And I was like, "What? That's powerful?" And they said, because it shows us like, if we're struggling with finances, look where we could be in 4 years.
Yeah.
And so whatever your audience is struggling with, chances are you were just there before them. And that's more relatable than someone who's been doing this for 20 years and didn't come into the same world as it is
Mhm.
now and got, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but there's a lot of people in the online space that came in when the space was empty
Mhm.
and it was much easier to get to the top. And some of them are still here, some of them aren't, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to say like you can do the exact same thing we did, it's not actually that accurate.
Yeah.
Like maybe, but it it's changed. And so with that being said, when someone's just a few years behind you, that's really powerful and valuable to them. And I don't think enough people see that. And instead, they let imposter syndrome take over. And they're like, but I don't have 20 years.
Yeah.
Great. That makes you even more valuable because they can see themselves. It's really hard for them to see themselves in someone that's doing 10 million when they're not even making 10,000 a year.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And as the marketer, for me, as the gap gets bigger from where I once was when I started
Mhm.
to where I am today, I find it more difficult to like truly remember how I felt and truly remember
Yeah.
the conversations I was having in my head. So my question for you would be, do you think it's important for a marketer to continuously evolve the client that they're serving, as opposed to like, let's say for me, serving the beginner, 10 years later, I'm very far from beginner. Should I then be serving the person who's not a beginner, but a multiple six-figure business owner?
Not necessarily. I think one of the things that we do is a lot of people don't know how to storytell and they
Yes.
don't know how to capture their stories. And so for me, I have a bank of stories. So like, it's funny because if I look back now, it's hard for me. I mean, I remember it being painful. Like I can feel it in my body. But now, even so, after I've healed from the bankruptcy, which has only been like, I just told my story in 2022.
Wow.
So, like, we're only, like, a year and a half out from that, me, like, actually healing and being open and being like, "We did file bankruptcy," but it was, like, after I healed from that, after I told that story, after I released the shame, like, I don't have the same feelings anymore that I did attached to that story, but I have voice notes. I have my story bank that in that moment, I have what it felt like, and I can go back to that and remember how it
Yeah.
felt. It's just like kids when they're like, "Oh, I remember," like, my daughter does this all the time. She's like, "Remember when we lived in the pink house and this happened?" I'm like, "You were 2, you don't remember that? You've seen videos and photos of that." But
Yeah.
she thinks she remembers it because she's seen those photos and videos. If we can start documenting, creating stories, holding onto these in a bank, we can get back there a lot easier, which doesn't mean that you need to start serving new people
Yeah.
because that's what a lot of people do, and then their business tanks
Yep.
because they try to like
Keeping up.
whatever, but it
Keeping up
doesn't
with the
work.
Joneses.
And so it's like, instead of that, don't make more work for yourself. Just keep this amazing story bank that you can go back and remember those like moments in those
Yeah.
situations and get in a habit of always collecting stories and being a better storyteller, and you'll be a better marketer.
It's so good. And I think it's important too, as a brand, a company, it doesn't matter big business or small, the consumer, I believe, should get to a place where they actually can tell your story without you telling it.
Yeah.
Like that's how often it should be coming up. I think it's really, really important. So when it comes to storytelling, because it is a skill that we're not necessarily taught and it does take
Mhm.
practice, are there particular resources or books or podcasts or anything that you love to help with storytelling?
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there's story. I think like Story Brand, maybe. I don't
Yep.
know. There's Kendra something that does stories. I think that I'm a big believer that you only know how to do something when you start doing it. So
Yes.
yeah, you could read all day about how to tell stories, but like until you actually start telling stories. So like we have a habit in our house at dinner time, we tell a story. Like you have to tell a story about your day, about something that happened. And so we're training our 6-year-old how to tell stories and good ones because we'll be like, womp womp, like that story, like, no, Riley, no. And so now it's really funny because she used to tell boring stories, but
Yeah.
now like her stories are so much better because we've like womped her stories so much. But now she's like, there was a pirate at school, and then what happened is they threw our shoes over the fence, and so now her stories are so much more fun because we practice this. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for my liberal arts school that we were like, this is so dumb. Every single class that we took, even badminton, we had to get up and give an oral presentation.
Wow.
And in order to give oral presentations, like you have to be good so people don't fall asleep. And
Mhm.
any presentation, even if it's on badminton, it all comes down to a story. Can you tell a story that keeps people interested? And the only way you're going to be a better storyteller is one, if you start listening to stories that people are telling that are good. So
Yeah.
find marketers that are really good at telling stories and listen to them. For me, it was Stu McLaren. Like he was so good at telling stories, and I learned so much. And I already thought I was good at telling stories. And then start telling stories in your everyday life. Jess, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like when we're at the mastermind, whenever someone asks a question, it goes to a story. Like
Yeah.
it's like, and this, and then you have to like you get better and you learn how to like do your voice and everything to tell a point. But then people remember you, they remember the marketing, they remember the
Yeah.
story. The stories connect people.
I love it. I'm seeing a future book in your a book in your future, Raising Great Marketers.
Oh, a funny story about that. Stories. So when I was at Funnel Hacking Live, which for anyone knows, it's like the ultimate bro conference, but it's near me and I love funnels. So I go each year, and I was pregnant with Bodhi, and I was in the elevator and the doctor calls, and I knew she was calling to tell me the gender of our baby.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, it's going to be a girl. It's going to be a girl. And I was like, hello. And she was like, hold on, I can't hear you. And I'm like, I'm on an elevator. Please just wait. Don't hang up. I get off the elevator. There's all these Lamborghinis, all these bros standing there, like, and she's like, you're having a boy. And I was like, I'm having a boy? I found out at the biggest bro marketing conference ever. I'm gonna have a little bro marketer who's gonna rent a Lambo and be on a yacht with girls throwing dollar bills for marketing videos. Like, that's where my head went. But so I am raising marketers starting at Funnel Hacking Live.
That's hilarious. That is a good story. And I could totally see him on a yacht in like 15 years.
With the name Bodhi, like
Yeah.
he's destined to be on a yacht.
Yeah, totally. 100%. It'll have like a great name on the back too. Man, I could talk to you all day. This is a blast. I'm so grateful for you. Before we get into some rapid fire, where can
Yeah.
people find you, work with you? What do you have going on? What's coming up? Tell me everything.
So there's only like 3 ways to work with me. And so one way is by joining our program Conversions for Clients. It's $2,000. It's an ad manager course. We have so many coaches join us, even if they don't want to be ad managers, but how to run their own ads and how to help their clients if their clients are running ads. That's the easiest way. We have some one-on-one coaching usually, and then consulting, but consulting's high ticket and it's for businesses who are already doing $500,000 plus per year. And so those are very limited. But if you find me at Instagram, Brandi Mowels, all one word, I'm brandimowels.com, everything. And I have a podcast, Serve, Scale, Soar. So Instagram DM, that's the best way. It's always me. I always say it's like when people say, like, do you have your team? I'm like, no, that's if that would be like if they're in my underwear drawer.
Yeah.
Like they are not in my DMs. Like that is all me. Until I have someone cleaning my underwear, I will be in the DMs.
I'm with you on that. And people are always
It
surprised
is.
when I say that, which is
I know.
funny too, because I have a small
Yeah.
relative. I have a small following. So I'm like, who do you
Yeah.
think it is?
I know. But even like I was talking to someone the other day who's very big, and he was like, I was like, this isn't you, it's your team, like whatever. Well, I was talking to the team like it was his team. I didn't say like this isn't, and he was like, I'm here at the gym right now doing sets and like video, and said, hey, Brandi. And I was like, oh, it is you. Like, and I think there's a lot of value there is
Yeah.
being in your DMs and being the one talking to people, and connection so important to me. So it will always be me in my DMs.
Love it. You ready for some rapid fire?
I am.
All right, we'll start easy. Favorite movie?
Ooh, favorite movie. Oh gosh, this is hard. Pulp Fiction?
Oh, cool. Wouldn't
Yep.
have pegged you for that. Actually, that's not true. I would.
A
What'd you
little
want to
edgy.
be? What'd you want to be when you grew up, when you were a kid?
Oh, an attorney, 100%.
Yeah. Best advice you've ever gotten?
Oh, best advice I've ever gotten. I think the best advice I've ever gotten is that this is so hard. Oh, you know what? I know it. And it came from James Wedmore, and it changed our life and our family. And it was like, why does this have to be an A or B conversation? Why can't there be a C? And it just opened up my mind to like, it's not so black and white. There's always a third option,
Yeah.
even when you can't see it. What do we need to do to find that?
He's so good. If you were to give a TED Talk on nothing you're known for, so no marketing, what would it be on?
Disney. How to plan a Disney vacation.
Fail. Womp womp. You're known for Disney. Try again.
Okay. How to make the best taco ever.
Okay. All right. Is there a trick to the shell? Is it the inside?
Ooh,
What
the
makes a
shell
taco
has
good?
What makes a taco good? Like,
I'm
what?
curious.
Well,
in your
one,
opinion.
you have to start with a fresh made flour tortilla. Corn
Got it.
is not the way to it. It's a fresh made, homemade flour tortilla.
Okay. I love it. I'm into it. Guilty pleasure.
Ooh, spending a lot of money at Disney.
$50,000 question. If I were to cut you a check for $50K tomorrow, you have to use it in or on your business. You could split it or use it in one lump sum. What would you invest in?
Ads.
Good answer.
No, seriously, I would, because I would be like, okay, so I can at least make 75,000 from this.
Yeah.
So then I can take that 25 and do something else with it.
Yeah, totally. Make your money make money for you. I love it.
Yep.
Last question. We named the company Digital Business Evolution because we believe we're always evolving and growing. And as we do, so does our business. What is your next personal or business evolution?
Oh yeah, we are on our way to 2 million this year.
Yes.
And not just 2 million, because 2 million you can do by spending 2 million in ads. And so we are running at 50% profit. We always do, but now we want to
Incredible.
continue that at 2 million. So $1 million profit.
Incredible. I'm stoked. I can't wait to watch you do it alongside you. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for coming on and dropping all of your wisdom nuggets. If you got anything out of this episode, do us a favor, do yourselves a favor, do your friends a favor, take a screenshot of this episode, share it out on Instagram, tag Brandi, excuse me. It's BRANDIMOWLES. Tag me at I'm Jessica DeRose. Let us know what one of your takeaways was. Let us know if you're feeling just a little bit more comfortable and confident around ads. Hopefully she helped ease that nerve if you had any. And that way we can share the episode with more people and we'll know exactly what it is that you are looking for, which is what Brandi said is the most important thing when it comes to marketing. And as always, friends, cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.